Okay, I'm gonna go back here.
Yeah, you too.
Good. From the couch.
Sir. I was trying to figure out what story I see in some news about what you did with Harry. So I apparently you said this. I've got it online. My wife's about 6 more weeks. I'm really debating. I'm gonna take vacation. I'm charge for next. I'm not sure yet. I know you're really well down there. No, but I never said a question. Did you? Karen, did you see Roger? He went next door. A couple. I think. What is it? You're also. There wasn't any. Yeah, I think. Chris James on you for top now.
Oh, I didn't know what you said, where you were going to dinner.
Right, I'm seriously.
Is your phone ring? Is your phone ring? I sat on the phone. I sat down.
She's gonna make.
Yeah, reach your top. Yeah, I got some.
You get a friend. He's gone.
I told him he went to the restroom. What was he gonna do? Knock on the door?
One sound.
Yeah, one sound.
Yeah, by one sound. I'll tell you what, I can't speak to those.
All right.
He does the fence.
Call the finance committee meeting to order. Call the roll call, please.
Mr. Bale.
Here.
Mr. Copeland.
Here.
Mr. Drexel.
Here.
Mr. Horton.
Here.
Mr. Showerman. Here. Mr. Scatella.
Here.
Mr. Winarski.
Here,
All right, first order of business. Charlie Bale's birthday. Happy birthday.
32.
Yeah.
That's right.
I don't think I'm pulling that off. All right. All right, item number one, ordinance number 9. Authorizing a guarantee agreement for the benefit of Pleasant Ridge Manor for about $700,000. Talked about that at length at last meeting. I see that we don't have anyone here representing them today. Any questions or anything on that? Yeah, I should have actually, we got a lot of people online. Was there anybody here that had public comment? Wish to speak? Anyone online that wish to speak? Anyone online? All right.
yes, I do. I'm sorry. I had my hand raised, but,
I just missed it, Mary.
okay, that's okay.
What you got?
Sorry, Rock. Yeah, do you have time this moment? I actually just wanted to comment real quickly on item number 4, I think it is. It's a change in courts for the IT position there's an IT position for, IT director position for the courts. And it's a hefty raise, it looks like, from a non-bargaining 17 to an NB 23. I can't help going back to the budget sessions that we sat through at the Jefferson and at other places where we were told that the salaries and the positions are out of control. And I also can't help knowing and thinking about the fact that there was this sort of semi-secret, unofficial hiring freeze from the county executive, which I don't believe was even legal, being that county council appropriated funds for example, the library, and I don't know how many other departments were affected. And we can't even tell by the haphazard budgeting that they did. We don't even know exactly how much was spent on personnel costs, for example, in the library. And that's just one example. And we don't know how much savings they had just by the fact that they weren't allowed to hire anybody from April all the way till October. So this move now to do this big increase and raise a court's IT person to the same level as the person who's the director of IT for the entire county seems a little excessive. So I just have to say that. Thanks for letting me say my piece, and I'll give it back to you.
Thank you. All right, and I already had a third call, so I'm assuming there's no other comments. Moving on to ordinance number 10, first 2025 general fund budget supplemental appropriation of $227,000 for line items to juvenile probation. First read was at our last meeting. Do you guys have anything to add with that?
It's adult probation, just to be clear.
Oh, did I?
Sure that, yeah, but no, unless there's a question.
On our agenda,
So, Mr. Chair,
yes, sir.
it is on there as juvenile.
And it is on the ordinance as well.
So. Our chief clerk did that, so that reflects the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, Colin, you can double check the account, but those were the items under the supervision fees that were adjusted in the budget process.
Yeah.
You could just make a note to make sure we get the correct account numbers and get that updated. It's a good thing if we bought that. I hate reading the ordinance line, all of it at once. I try to summarize, but maybe I shouldn't do that. All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about on that? We can move forward with that as amended in the meeting. All right, number 3, ordinance number 11, ordinance amending the Erie County Administrative Code to establish restrictions on the use of county resources and to limit their use to official government business. First read at the last meeting. Sure.
Comment about that. It's not okay that the county executive still has hijacked the page. Right? He's changed the name.
Yeah.
Like, this is. I'm not letting this go. Like, he doesn't get to just do that for his campaign purposes. I don't care what kind of truck he thinks he's driving. Anybody? Thoughts? You got a pretty direct connection to him. What's his deal with the page?
We'll get you an answer.
Yeah,
Well-
that same, you know what? What good are you to us and your role to this county? If you can't give us a straight answer about finances that are happening, numbers being wrong, and you give us that, do you have the answers from last week? You don't, do you?
I don't know what the questions were from last
Okay.
week. I asked for an email.
We
I
asked
didn't
them all
get it.
to you,
And
and you just Like seriously, like, what
I think it's
what do you do every day?
I guess I don't know.
I don't know either, cause obviously it's not balance our budget or work on finances for the county or serve the community in any way that's helpful. I mean, you're the one that's showing up to these meetings, so you're getting the brunt of it, but. And you give us stupid answers like that,
I'm sorry.
so if they give us a stupid
Terry,
answer
I
like.
think we should refrain.
Terry.
I think we should ask questions.
Terry.
No,
We should-
hold on a
Down.
second.
I'm the-
I'm the chair here. Chris
It's
is
not my meeting.
probably, I understand the anger, and I
I
understand the
understand the
frustration.
anger too.
It would be nice, and I do mean this.
Well, no, let's go
No,
talk.
hold on a
someplace
second.
Right here.
Hold on.
What?
No, this is our opportunity to
Okay,
speak in
this
the
is your
public.
house,
venue.
so I'm gonna respect your
So-
house.
So it would be nice if there was other representation from the administration. Joe has not been to one of our meetings in a very long time. And you do bear the brunt of it because we see you as the last person representing the administration that bothers to attend these meetings. So. Yeah, there's a lot of anger here where this page represents 22 elected officials that have been hijacked. It's frustrating, and so you're gonna hear our frustration, and I hope you appropriately relay that to them.
Well, I think, Rock, as far as this being an ordinance, maybe the solicitor's office should talk to our solicitor about an ordinance issue. I mean, you guys brought it forth as an ordinance, you know.
Can I just say, from an HR standpoint, and we all need to be civil to each other, but I feel that, so we are redoing the handbook. And there's a social media policy in that handbook, from an HR employee-facing policy. We can answer to that. But this is an elected official thing where, to Paul's point, I really think you need to talk to each other as elected officials and have your solicitors talk to each other also, because we are not,
Mr.
we
Chair,
don't control the content of what the county executive puts on a page.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I understand.
I'm being recognized here.
in a normal governmental operating government, people, yeah, they talk to each other. But this administration has found it necessary to, when they are talking, to limit who they're talking to, as evidenced by their right to know request when they say, don't tell Terry, don't tell Andre. This administration has no desire to speak with anyone. They don't even let their department heads speak with us. This just the first meeting you've been to in a while. And you weren't even allowed to come down here. So I find that a little disingenuous at this time. Maybe that would have been a year or two ago. But clearly, the administration has drawn lines. I have to echo some of my colleagues' sentiments on what is the role of the finance department if we can't get basic information. And if you won't follow the home rule charter. And so I understand his frustration. With that said, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. Put the ordinance together. It's crazy. These last 3 years have been crazy. The morale here in this building and throughout the county is in the toilet. No one wants to work here. Those of us who are here, particularly this body, has taken an oath to do some things. And so, unfortunately, social media aside, just with the budgetary help, I think the suggestion was that county council establish their own Facebook presence, and then we still have to go through the administration's IT because it's already been demonstrated that it's no longer Erie County's IT. And so he's rebranded the social media page. I suggest that he don't stop there, that he be fully transparent and go ahead and address or rebrand the finance department and the IT department as well, because they don't work for the citizens clearly. Or the employees of Erie County, or the 22 electeds of Erie County. They indeed work for him, the director of administration. And it's appalling. It's appalling.
You know, about the social media policy. I believe it's in 2023 that a bunch of the county affiliated pages all said that they will no longer be posting under separate umbrellas, that they will all post under one umbrella, United Erie County, so that the people of Erie don't have to go to multiple venues to learn about information. Right? I'm sure you might recall that. 6 days ago, the Erie County career pages just started posting. They had one post in all of 2024, and now in the last 6 days, they've been posting all the career postings to that page rather than the Erie County page. Erie County page has 6,500 people following it. The county careers page has 300. Would that not hurt your efforts to get employees, you know, to have eyeballs on these job postings? That if we're putting this information out in 20 different venues rather than one?
It's gonna take a while to catch up, first of all, where's help?
Yeah. Why did that suddenly change if that page had been dormant for almost 2 years?
We'll get an answer for
We
you.
had that, we had. Probably.
I mean, you guys just started posting there again, right?
We're just trying to recruit, and so they parsed it out, and the county executive is using that page now for whatever purposes. And so the careers page was always in existence, and so now we're gonna have to ramp it up more because
So
we're part of that bigger parcel of that bigger.
just to clarify. Departments are no longer allowed to push information out through that normal Erie County government page. And you now have to resort towards these other 20 pages that were eliminated 2 years ago?
I can't answer that question because I'm not,
Were you directed to start posting it from there?
no, I think we chose to do that on our own because we were like, we have to get this rolling here. We can't be mixed up in all of the blue of what's going on here.
Mr. Chair, I believe the
Recruit.
county executive said that his director of administration is the administrator of that page now that Mr. Carroll is no longer in that position. And so anything that goes on that page would have, just like any other page, would have to go through the administrator. And so I think when they post stuff, they gotta go through the administrator too, right? And so even as it stands now, even if we had the best Facebook branded page, we still have to go through IT, which we can't even get IT to do our election stuff for the citizens. So it's just really crazy that the page isn't being used for what it was intended for. It's really counterintuitive to recruiting people for Erie County government. If you're going to direct them to a page with 300 people, followers, as opposed to 6,500 people, it's crazy.
I think the one thing about this ordinance and the changing dynamic over the last week or two since it was introduced, it doesn't feel constraining enough. I mean, I can't even believe that we're even talking about this kind of stuff, but can you imagine if like the EMS, public service, started push notifications at people's phones and said county council's trying to destroy America or whatever the latest thing, I mean, like, would that be an inappropriate use of like a communication ability of the county to be co-opted in that manner? I think it certainly would, and like, this is so stupid.
You almost need your own server. That's why the courts, as you'll see further on in the agenda, that's why they're here today too, to speak to that other matter. Because the fact that the three-legged stool can't see eye to eye on things is really problematic for every citizen in Erie County. And if the courts, oh my God, has to go through IT to get their things posted, that's a problem. Your county council has to go through to so that we can comply with the Department of State's requirements on election night, that's a problem. And we almost need our own server. And he can do it, because clearly from how he's operating is he can do what he wants to do. From social media, Erie County social media page.
Chris, it seemed like he has an eye.
Yeah, I appreciate, I'll withdraw my stupid remark about your comment. That was too far, okay? There's things I think about your comment about, does to myself.
What
We don't
wasn't about
agree.
my comment, you said I was stupid.
No, we
So
can
let's
play
just-
back and
we'll
listen
move
if
on,
you want to,
Chris.
but we'll move on from that, right?
It's your house.
Yeah, yeah, it's my house. So this whole, like, I just can't get back, keep going back to the page being taken over by him, like, how is it that everyone is okay with this? Like, everybody's cool with that, like, they want that to happen, there's no way is this benefiting Erie County. You're going to have to rebuild your page, it's gonna take you a long time, right? What about other departments that don't have a page to be able to get out and hire people? Like, that's going to affect us from being able to recruit good people. That is in no way, shape or form of us working together. I don't think that we're gonna find a real route to work together until we start getting straight answers. And we can really, really understand what's going on in the financial picture, and we can trust that the numbers we're being given are accurate. Cause nothing matches, man. And in this ordinance, to your point about it not being restrictive enough. This ordinance has my support. I in no way, shape, or form think this changes the behavior of the administration. I don't think there's any sort of consequence that's truly outlined in this. And it's like we're telling a toddler not to do something for the 100th time. Do we really expect they're not gonna go and try to swipe a cookie when we turn her back again? They're gonna do the same thing. This is in essence a waste of our time. But it's the only tool that we have. But in the meantime, that page is now being used for political gain. And to smear the reputation of other people that represent this county. And it's not right. And if there's a way that, I can combat that, I will, because people deserve truthful information, not to be fed lies. Constant lies on that page that are penned by apparently the director of administration now
He's
Right.
administrative.
and our county executive, who both claim to be putting Erie community at front. I just don't know how any sane person could look at this and think that this is okay.
Well, Councilman Drexel, and even since my friend Ann is down here, I just have to say that since you brought it up, your policy, I'm really disappointed that HR or IT doesn't have a social media policy forbidding this type of behavior already in place, for especially IT. Because I thought, I know that there are safeguards against employees using county websites for personal
Yeah.
stuff, but I don't think if he's going far, he can go far enough. I don't think you all went far enough.
Well, just to be clear, there is on the My EC, which is our intranet, there is an old policy there. And there's also a policy in our handbook, and we update the handbook every 2 years or anytime a significant change in a law or regulation takes place, and we update right away. But, so we're doing that now, and we're noticing that we have a digital media policy, then we have this older policy from the previous administration. And so HR is taking it upon ourselves, because it's an employee-facing handbook, that we need to look at all of these policies and make sure that they're not contradicting each other, and that they are reflective of our current organization and the ethics and goals that we have for all of our employees, so.
Yep. I mean, I get it because, I mean, the IT comes out, the double authenticator, you gotta have 14 letters, character,
Yeah.
a spot of blood on there, and so, but you can't, but we don't have a social media prohibition, or we don't have a adequate, I should say,
Right, and that's
policy.
internally
on
looking at that.
Yeah, and I bring that up because everybody's saying cybersecurity, cybersecurity, cybersecurity. There's no quicker way to infringe on someone's social media, someone's internet site, other than social media.
Right.
Through a follower.
Right.
So it's just astounds me that a county of this size doesn't have a policy prohibiting such egregious behavior.
I think the issue is that it's one thing to have a policy.
Right.
But unless it's an ordinance, elected officials are not constrained by it.
Right, exactly. That was my point. That's where I was trying to go here, because, yeah.
Can I make a comment with all politics aside, just business? For our office, and we've worked with HR in the past to post things on LinkedIn when we have, for example, the HRC director position. And their staff, and they're working with me on making that post. The way for it to reach the most audience, to have a reach of what they, were anticipating 10,000. That's kind of what LinkedIn was revealing to them, will reach 10,000. The words that they had to choose did not match up with the job description. It wanted to fit it into a labor relations manager, which is not what Human Relations Commission is. So when I was working with them, we said, well, we can tweak the words, but we have to get it to fit to what LinkedIn is going to recognize to put it out there and get the best reach. The best we could come up with, because I really wanted it to truly reflect the position, limited that reach to 1,000 people. And that's not something that HR could do, or that we could do, or the county could do. That's something that's built into these social media platforms. So we have to use the words and the technology and the algorithms that they already have in place. So since that was limited to a reach of only 1,000, I was depending on that Erie County Facebook and Instagram page. I was depending on that social media presence so that that could be shared. A number of our applicants did apply because of that social media post on Facebook that I shared, that the board of directors and the people in the public have shared with other people. That's how the word of mouth got out there, so that we had the applicants that we did have last time. That's with about 6,500, 6,600 followers on that main page. The more activity there is on that social media page, the higher it's going to be ranking on your Facebook feed. So even if you have a new Facebook page or a presence with 300, 700 people on it, it's not going to show up on your feed. I went looking for that post because I knew it was scheduled to be on social media yesterday, the Human Relations Commission position. And somebody directed me to the career site. And even looking for that in the search bar, I scroll until I finally found that. Now, for that to start populating in my feed, I'm going to have to like it. I have to wow it. I have to comment on it. There are things that I can do to start bringing it to the top of my feed, but it's not going to bring it to top of anybody else's feed. And it's going to be hidden. So even if you could overnight get 5,000 new followers, it's not going to just show up on people's feed. So that Erie County presence is really important for us to get our information, our media releases, our announcements, our job postings is something that we depend on. And this is all politics aside. This is something that we need in our department so that we can communicate and interface with the public.
Mr. Chairman, I do a few.
I've already spent enough time.
So, I understand frustration, I understand anger. I know we have two sets of meetings. We do caucus in here, we do our regular meetings in the other room, but I don't really view them any differently. So we don't allow attacks to occur in that room. We don't allow them to attack council members. We don't attack members that are sitting out there, taxpayers, whoever they are. Should go in here too, because I don't ever remember since I've been here, and it's only been 3 years, but I don't know that any county employee or anyone has ever attacked a member of council, and we wouldn't tolerate it if it did. So I think that should go both ways in both rooms. We're talking about an ordinance where, we're angry at the county executive for attacking council, and then people levy attacks from the dais, or from here, and it's, I mean, it boggles the mind. So I don't agree with any attacks either way. You know, we are civilized, we should have some decorum, we can talk, and we can discuss, and we can be frustrated, angry without allowing that to bubble to the surface and affect how we, you know, perform. So it needs to go both ways, and I think that needs to be understood. And again, I've never heard anybody on that side attack us, ever.
Well, he apologized, or withdrew.
I'm just saying it should
Or
never happen.
withdrew it, but I do want to make the distinction. Tough questions do not constitute an attack. And for the most part, when you come in this body or the other, or the other room, you get treated with the respect and the dignity. And I have had the public attack, or I've stopped the public from attacking people in that room particularly. But decency, there's never an excuse for poor manners. So I get that, but I do want to make that distinction, because I get you an answer, it's just not acceptable week in and week out.
If it's okay, I'd like to move on to orders number 4. We're gonna be here till quite late. Let's see, general fund supplemental appropriation, $138,793 for revised revenue and expenditures in the course computer bureau. You guys like to speak to that?
Yes, and so again, feel free to interrupt me with any questions or concerns, obviously. The courts, as you know, have their own IT department, and we feel very strongly about that. And the last time I was in here, we discussed the necessity of autonomy. I've been around a long time. I don't recall when or why or how the responsibilities under the 2 different IT departments were divvied up. I suspect that the reason why the sheriff, the district attorney, and the clerk of records offices that are arguably all court related fall under the court's IT is because they're court related. But that being said, they're separate elected officials as well, and I think they would prefer, and I can speak for them, but I think it's safe to assume that they would like some autonomy with respect to their priorities and what they want to see done with respect to their IT needs. So, that being said, council is interested in coming under the auspice of the court's IT department for a myriad of reasons. And quite frankly, the courts aren't concerned or interested directly in those reasons. They impact us, they impact the community, but from a budget standpoint, we just need to know that if we're going to take on the additional responsibilities of council, we're going to need to make some changes with our department so we're properly staffed and properly equipped. So, you know, as it stands right now, the courts are responsible for the court's IT department is responsible for a significant portion of all of the county's IT needs. I'm sure we can get the specifics. I don't want to throw around numbers loosely, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of a third of all of the county's employees fall under the court's IT department. We have 6 total people in our IT department. The other 2/3 of the county fall under the county's IT department and their responsibility. And they have 30 employees for their responsibility. And if you break down the cost per user of what the court's budget is, the court's IT budget, total court's IT budget divided by the number of county employees that fall underneath there, it's somewhere in the $1,700 range per employee. If you take that same analysis, take the court's the county's administration's entire IT budget and divide it by the number of employees they're responsible for, it's in the 3,000 something. I certainly encourage finance and personnel to verify those numbers. I think we've gone over that before. So we need more help if we're gonna take on more additional work. And the added costs that you see here reflect that with the two positions that we need to add. With respect to the reorganization and reclassifications and my response to former Councilwoman, who I respect very much, by the way. Mary Rennie's always been very, very well informed at all the council meetings. She's always had the best interest of the county at heart. I don't doubt her motivation for a second. But with respect to her concerns about the costs that we're bringing on to the county for the reclassifications, this is really an attempt at this point just to find some equity. You know, the basis of the county pay plan, the classification system, is jobs with the same duties and the same responsibilities should be classified the same. And whatever criteria that you want to use to determine, and we're happy to provide that to you. The court's IT director and the other position have the same responsibilities as their counterparts in the administration's IT. So we're taking the opportunity to come to you not several times throughout the year. We're trying to do this in one fell swoop. These are important reclassifications to bring some equity to the court system. I preach this to anybody who's willing to listen. Paul and I are good friends, but we've had honest disagreements over things over the last couple of years, and he's heard me say this a million times. We should be on the exact same level as the administration is with respect to how our department heads get paid, where they start in the pay classification plan, the classification breakdown of all of our employees, and there's some fairly glaring examples of where that doesn't exist. And our IT department is one of those. So we're looking for, when I say autonomy just doesn't mean separate, it means separate and equal. And so we are attempting to get this done for the IT portion of all this here and now. And you can see the numbers and what they reflect. And I will say, if council and the election bureau and the individuals that we're going to be taking under the wing of the court's IT department would like that to happen before early May, we're going to need to get moving on that fairly quickly so we can be up and running in a way that's going to prepare you the way I suspect you want to be prepared.
Well, thank you, Bob. Well, clearly, council has a few needs, mostly centered around our voter registration. We might bleed into social media now, it looks like, too. My issue is you almost need your own separate server to be truly autonomous, because whether we do a Facebook or every department does a Facebook, and we say, well, we're not the administrator, we can't just freely, it still has to go through their IT, through Jeff in their server. And so I would, anyone can stop me if I'm speaking out of sorts too, but
Councilman, we have our own servers with respect to some information, and I think Bree can speak more intelligently on get to that certainly.
We are working on some updates on this, but we do run on a separate system. Some of the very basic, just as it enters into the building stuff is the same because there's no reason for it not to be. But as soon as it gets past that, we do actually separate to two entirely different IT infrastructures and staff members.
Yeah,
So that is already separated from that.
yeah, because what I found out in very real time during the general election is that you all couldn't even get your stuff posted, even with having a server. You had to get clearance from Jeff. You had to get clearance from Paul. From Joe. You had to get clearance from Brett.
That has to do with the hierarchy of administration over the webpage. And typically, I will say, typically, we're very well with the administration. We don't have any trouble getting things on their webpage. In a perfect world, we prefer to have our webpage with a link to address Karen's point with getting people aware. We would have a separate webpage with a link on the county webpage that 6,500 people visit all the time to say, course information, go here, click on this, on the link, and it takes you to our webpage, and we have control.
All the drive engine words and stuff that is stereo, I get that. But, so I'm glad to know that you have your own server. But I'm still trying to reconcile with having your own server, how we've still had to go through Jeff to get county stuff. Cause I distinctly remember coming up to see the president judge, kind of gave it a shrug. I was really disappointed. I have a great relationship with y'all. I thought, that he should have gave him a little bit more, only because I know the needs that you have. I mean, because as the president judge, if you have these, you didn't just get these needs, right? He's been here, and particularly at that critical juncture, I'd like to see the courts uphold that third leg of the accountability. I'd like to see us uphold ours, but I'd like to see the court get a little bit more assertive or resolute in these things too. And you have to speak up and say, hey, this ain't working for us. It shouldn't have to be when after everything is collapsed or everything has gotten here, all the fights have been fought. So now we come here and say, well, yeah, by the way, we need this money for the intern and for the IT and we'll be able to help you guys too. But we should have this done like in November, immediately following the election. We should have done this. And the worst thing, I'll say this to shut up, the worst thing that as far as IT that I've been a part of, and I ain't wrong a lot, but I was wrong on that. We never should have allowed IT to consolidate in that fashion for this very reason.
Yeah, where did the exhibits come from for this? We get these from the administration?
Not from the administration, no.
I'm a little confused. Exhibit B shows 3 positions. Going from mid to high 40s to up 53 is the highest. But the court IT director shows going from an MB 17 to an MB 23, we're taking roughly a $40,000 pay cut.
I think that's great.
That has to do with the existing budget, with the existing, the director of court IT that was with the county for 30-some years. So it's he was budgeted for 2025. I know we paid out some, I don't know that it's reflected in here because again, I'll explain in a second. Typically, we go to the administration to help us with these numbers. We got it to them a little bit late, there's some immediacy with this the middle of last week. We missed our cutoff by a couple of hours. And then normally we float it to personnel, HR, we would massage all this and make sure everything we had was 100% in line.
So those numbers aren't correct.
They're very close. That's all I can tell you at this point, because they haven't had, I guess, sufficient opportunity to review. It was Wednesday of last week when we provided them this information to them. And I think normally it needs to be in their hands. I didn't realize it was 1 o'clock on Wednesday, but apparently that's the deadline. And we had just talked about this later in that day, so we got it to them late Wednesday. Thursday morning, Paul and I communicated. He asked me to send it to him electronically, which I did. We dropped off the hard copies to them Wednesday afternoon. So, we're 8 days out from that, but to answer your question specifically, the budget for 2025 shows the existing pay for a 30-year county employee in the position as Breeze Hall, the director. So it seems a little silly for me to say there's a savings there.
Well, it is, that $18 kind of moving the money around. For us.
I mean, it's.
And in fact, I would say that.
I have a quick question. In all the meetings that I've attended and webinars and that, they stress the importance of keeping the court systems within themselves and not adding anything else to them for security reasons, anti-hacking reasons. So if you would take over something for us, then you're not keeping encapsulated anymore.
So I'll speak that quickly and then I'll let her talk about the flux capacitors that we've placed to protect those interests, but. So as you know, currently we have the district attorney, the sheriff, and the clerk of records, the recorder of deeds, clerk of courts, orphans court, all of those folks that are under us. We do have protections in place, and there are other counties that have those offices and other elected officials on the force. But the protections that we actually have in place for that, I'll let Bree speak to, because
There's a whole lot of different ways to separate. There's the physical separation where things can be on different servers. I know. When I worked at places with a lot of HIPAA, that was one of the big things where the information was both on separate servers and separate networks. Those things can all be managed under the same IT department.
Then do your people, if you were to take us on, it's two different systems. Do they have to go through training in two totally different systems?
They would make you a separate, what they call it as a domain, or you guys would join to our domain, we would just keep it separate. Like I said, there are logical and physical separations, so we can make sure items are on separate machines if needed. We can make sure items are separated from the, as Bob likes to lovingly refer to it, the flux capacitor portions of it, where we make sure that those things don't cross or.
So there's no compromise in security?
There is no.
I might even argue that putting the election, voter election stuff up under that would seem to be rather seamless. And it also provides that level of security that you already have that we so desperately need for a function as important as that.
Before I hand it off, I'm sorry, I know this is getting long. Paul, when a department has a line item that is overexpended beyond what they've been budgeted. They can either transfer between two different line items within their budget or have a supplemental appropriation, right?
Yes.
Those are the only two methods to overspend the line item, like to fund a line item beyond what's been budgeted.
Where are we going?
Well, last year, and this is gonna bleed over to the personnel meeting, I was wrongly critical of when we were approving the prison, contract for the prison workers. That the budget had not reflected, the labor agreement. And I was wrong, because until you have that negotiation done, you can't figure out how to account for that in the budget. And I think what I should have done at the time was question why there wasn't a supplemental appropriation put up at the prison, because we've been told that that contract was gonna cost us roughly 1.3, I think it was, it's from memory from a year ago. Roughly $1.3 billion more than what the prison budget showed. And I kind of kept an eye on that budget throughout the year, because I was really concerned about how are we gonna spend more than what has been appropriated. And I was watching the transfers, I asked you and Joe a couple times, hey, what's going on with this? I was told, it's all gonna work its way out, and at the end, we'll do a bunch of adjustments and we'll get it worked out, right? And we saw the adjustments in December, you, and Patrick sat and talked about adjustments were made, and I questioned, I said, you only have $850,000 of transfers in this department, you've got like $1.7 million of line items that are overspent. How are you gonna make that work? And the comment was said, well, we don't have enough money to transfer. And I saw the numbers just came out from last year, the final budget for the prison was over budget by $2 million. And I'm wondering how that happens, like. The money was spent, right? We can see that. Where does that come from? Like, you don't have a mystery bucket of cash laying around, right? Like,
No,
so how is a
Uh,
department like the prison able to
I-
overspend by $2 million?
I'm assuming this, you're giving me approximate numbers, I don't know those for a fact, I
They're
don't know, you know. I'll look that up, that one I will get you an answer.
I'm really concerned because the critique last year should or not have been, why wasn't this budgeted for? The critique should have been, how are we paying for this? And so, you know, from a finance perspective, I'm just
Well, I
trying to
do know, I
understand.
mean, they've been 40 people short.
Right,
for
but
a
you
year.
still,
So 40 people times $40,000 is about $1.6 million right off the top of my head. So,
whether it's a
Right.
mandated service or whether
Yeah.
it's,
no, if you
Uh,
understand what I mean,
but it still requires a supplemental appropriation
if,
to overspend
yeah, if
money.
we're over by that much and there wasn't enough money in another line item to cover it, the whole bit, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a
I mean,
really,
without me
please,
having
please take notes on that
that
and get back to me,
information
because
there, that one I'll get you an answer.
I'm trying to figure that out, because if we're looking through line item by line item in a budget and saying this is the amount of money that we're setting aside, and I'll note, I'm further concerned about it, because last year it was $700,000 of overtime roughly that was budgeted, and we spent, Colin, what was it around, it was around two, right?
The overtime we spent in
2.4.
2024 was $2,407,926. It had a budget of $776,900, over budget by 1.6 million.
And what is it this
Change.
year?
For 2025,
300,000.
I know it budgeted down, 475,000.
So I'm really concerned about that budget in particular. And I really intend on watching it and try to understand when we overspent in a line item by. What's the percentage? That's like 300%, right?
It's, yeah, something of that nature, yeah.
And so,
What are we headed for this year?
Well, currently for the 2025 budget for the prison, that is on open budget. The actual spent to date is $126,103. The budget is $475,000, so we're already, I mean, on track to be
keep
over.
an eye on
budget.
that.
Yeah, I mean, this was a gotcha moment, I get it, you already have this set up, I'll look into this.
No.
No, I was asking.
Oh, you just happen to be on that page?
Yeah,
Oh,
I pulled up the page.
No,
while we're
here's
talking
what I'm
about it.
talking about, he's pulling it up
Yeah,
like a
stuff
good advisor
together.
Yeah.
should. No, and it's
Well,
not a gotcha, not a gotcha moment, it relates to, some concerns with our budget that I think an audit
Or
would,
valid.
that an audit would show, hey, you're not allowed to spend $2 million more than you're appropriated. It's
No, you're right,
it's
you're
almost
absolutely right.
like misappropriation. And, but it also relates to something that we're gonna talk about in a few minutes, and I got the floor now. I mean, I'm not setting you up. I'm addressing concerns that I have that I'm trying to figure out, like, how is it that a department can willfully overspend $2 million? And what is the accountability there that stops that? Because I don't even know what the point is of me producing a budget if it could just be ignored. You know, or. Like that's a concern, like. Not a gotcha moment, but it makes
It
me
is,
angry,
absolutely.
cause I don't know what I'm doing here. If this is the way that it plays out, what's the point of us doing a budget if it's not followed? What's the point of us doing a budget if the numbers in the final budget don't match what we approved? Or what was proposed? Like I asked about last finance meeting, I just, it feels like the county budget right now is some fictional made up document that nobody gives a damn about. That's what it feels like. And I'm trying to figure out where the accountability comes in. How do we stop from overspending $2 million? I don't have that in my back pocket. But it does come out of the taxpayer's pocket, doesn't it? But that bothers me a lot. You know, we talked about what the fund balance is. I don't know how to tell what the fund balance is gonna be at the end of the year if it can just come out of there without any appropriation. Speaking of. When do we get the analysis of the fund balance, like we used to on a monthly basis,
We're
or
gonna start-
these meetings?
As you've seen, we're getting the financial statements in order and we'll be able to start doing that pretty soon.
I mean, what is it about this year that's caused a pretty big
The end of the
delay?
year was a little different, we had some problems upstairs.
Okay, I mean, cause we should be looking at that on a meeting by meeting basis, cause it helps us decide whether or not we wanna approve an ordinance. We say, we got $44 million in the fund balance. And we wanna take out $200,000, I didn't realize it's getting that low, we better tighten the belt. So I'd like to see that. Even if it's an estimate, something about where we are in the fund balance, cause I think please.
It might be helpful. I know, Mr. Spargo, Sue Ellen, them used to bring their laptop, kind of like calling bills, might be helpful, I don't know how you do, but it might be helpful if you had that at these, caucus meetings, or for, I mean, not the caucus meetings, but the personnel finance meetings. You probably have some of those answers right at your fingertips, in the same way that Colin is able to pull up the information. It's a suggestion.
Mr. Chair. I know it was a big critique of last year was that we have all these finance meetings and we don't talk about finance, and now we want to talk about finance and no one wants to talk about finance. Like, that's the whole point of this, like, it's not, you know, last year was a problem, this year we can't get an answer, so I don't know where to go here, man. So, that's it.
And with Jim on Zoom, is the vice chair taking over personally? That chart? There you go.
Oh, thanks.
Don't throw
Yeah, very good. Next round. Yes, Mr. Winarski is joining us online, so this time I'll call the Personnel Committee meeting to order. Number one.
I moved that the meeting be adjourned. No.
But we only got 2 items, so it's, you know, I'm missing my birthday dinner. First ordinance is amending ordinance 89 of 2023 and approval of memorandum of agreement for public safety telecommunicators in the AFSCME clerical technical labor agreement. And I'm guessing I'll explain. You guys are here.
So this is just a process that we always go through whenever we ratify a contract, we bring it to council for your approval, and also this is an amendment to the contract, so it's the same process. We brought this, I believe, last year. And the contract wasn't signed, so you asked us to bring it back, and so we're bringing it back in contract.
Mr. Chair, sounds like housekeeping, but I would still say that Jay or Tom should get their eyes on the amendment. But maybe HR will outline any what do you call it? Any changes, material changes to help our solicitor out.
Sure.
We should be able to do that by Tuesday.
I mean, I could do a brief summary. This is specifically for the AFSCME telecommunicators within the public safety department. So these are the 911 call takers. It is a request based on staffing needs, based on retention of employees up there.
Well, I know my poor shot, before you get going, is this the one that required them to be treated a little different? I think they wanted to be classified differently.
So it is a reclassification of, they used to be, it's a 1 grade increase in classification. We still kept the steps like they have based on training and, you know, things that they can move up throughout their career with the county. It is also, they did receive the 3% general wage increase January 1st. This is a 6% increase for the reclassification plus an additional 9%. So the total is 15% above what they received January 1st, which was 3%. It is also retroactive to January 1st. And like Ian mentioned, signed by AFSCME, as well as HR. It did take us some time to get this settled, but the union has agreed to it. The employees are excited about it. So, you know, it is retroactive to January 1st. So correcting it hopefully will help us recruit and retain people where we need it.
Mr. Chair. I'm really glad that you guys got this done. I know that was an intense back and forth negotiation, and I know it took a lot to do. I'm glad that we were able to vote with the appendix and like that really helped things out. But this is slightly more complicated than it appears to be on its face. And only for one issue is that council in the budget process, all of us agreed and said 7-0, that we don't have the authority to change the union pay rate for these positions if there's not an agreement in place. And at the time, it didn't appear that would happen because it was an intense negotiation. And so we voted 7-0 to put in the budget the contract pay as it stood. That was subsequently vetoed. Okay? And just like the last two budget years, where there has been a veto exercise to somehow revert those line items back to the proposed budget, which has no force of law, that is already involved actively in litigation. We filed with that particular section. And it is the opinion of council that that money is not appropriated, no matter what it shows in the 2025 published budget. I mean, I cannot possibly take any position other than that position. So I've asked twice in the last week if we're going to see a supplemental appropriation to fund these paid positions. Because I want to fund this. I want to approve this today. But like, are we going to get a supplemental appropriation to adjust those line items so that we can both finally agree on one topic to say we are both on board with this and just put up the supplemental and we'll match it up and everybody be happy? Can we do that?
We believe that those numbers are in the budget.
So that puts workers of Erie County in a weird spot, doesn't it?
Might I suggest that your attorney and our attorney talk about this and come on with this?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Well, sounds like it should be tabled.
our attorney is not a council person. Even though
I know,
we all
but
have
they're
issues at times, but
They're talking about. They're talking about the litigation anyway. This is something that we all want to get resolved.
Yeah.
Perhaps the two of them come to an agreement. I mean, I
hey,
talked-
it's also possible for Brenton to come here and finally we can hash out the stuff and try to come to some mutual ground and compromise. That's possible too. I don't expect much to come of it, but that's possible.
just throwing it out there.
I think it should be struck from the agenda or tabled until we get those questions answered. I want to do this too. But again, that's basic accounting. It's basic, I mean, he reverse engineers it when it works for, oh, the money's there, money's not there, but the fact that we're in litigation over it, I think that's an excellence, I think that's an excellent suggestion.
I mean, it's your call, I mean, it's on your agenda, so we just,
I
know
would
you were
suggest.
gonna Ask me, go ahead, I'm sorry, Rob.
I would suggest that despite us being in an impasse on this veto issue, that it would also be possible for that department to fund it by transferring from another line item. Or, you know, that there's lots of different ways that they could fund it without a supplemental appropriation. So I'm not gonna say that, you know, I don't think that there's anything that
That's up to them.
causes us to be unable to pay the worker. But when we do get an injunction, and I do expect that we will get an injunction that stops that money from being spent, you will hit a roadblock and it will be a problem for you.
Well, you know, the 10% transfer in the department, that's entirely up to them. But again, I would recommend that we not take any action without having that advice of our solicitor, for the simple fact that we are in litigation over it.
Jay, do you have something
Yeah,
there?
I would say, okay, so the attorneys talk, I know how attorneys are, they can butt heads and they can say no. The other option here is for the county executive to simply submit a supplemental appropriation. And if you submit supplemental appropriation, I can already count one vote, yes.
I count two.
Yeah,
Right.
that could, I think that's the solution.
And it puts it to
Submit
bed
a
right now.
supplemental appropriation pursuant to the local charter.
And it removes one item out of our litigation, it would become moot. And like, that's a win-win for everyone, I think.
It's also an example of how we can work together on something.
And to do anything different than that from my standpoint of view, because this isn't, in as much as this is about the contract, this is really about the authority of council, and the way that things are done here. And so, absence of supplemental appropriation, I won't support that. And they are free, to Councilman Copeland's, point, they are free to do a departmental transfer.
Any other discussion, questions? So moving forward, we'll hope that there's some conversations between the attorneys, and if those don't bear any fruit, then maybe something comes from the county executive in the way of a supplemental appropriation, and the caucus will take the appropriate steps.
If that doesn't happen, I would ask that it either be struck or that it be tabled.
All right. Anything else? Item number 2 seems much more simple. Possible appointment of Jill Sue Starr. And I'm not gonna get into all her credentials, but to the Erie County Drug and Alcohol Advisory Board, term to expire December 31st, 2027. That is brought forward by the county executive, and her information is attached.
I got a lot to say about that. Looks like a really good applicant.
Anything else?
I move to adjourn.
So moved. No, it's good. Yeah.